Welcome to Unearthed ARTcana, coming to you from the BBC. That's the Bad Boy Club. It's us. We're going to talk about the other classes.
Are we bad boys?
We're the bad boys. Yeah. Well, bad boys at least until. Hang on, what's the film called?
I can't remember.
Suicide
Squad. I think it's Bad Boys Forever After.
Birds of Prey.
Bad Birds of Boy.
Bad Birds of Boy.
Birds of Boy. What you gonna do?
Legit, I can never remember the name of that stupid, terrible movie. Yes. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the cleric today. We don't have to introduce the idea. Last time we had to say that there was a new thing up. We don't have to say that now because we've talked about that.
People watch all of our videos. This won't be the first. This won't be the first video for anyone ever. So we don't need to explain anything. That's exactly correct. That's how that works.
You're right. Look, I'm Theo. I'm going to be. These Unearthed ARTcana videos are still loose and bad, and that's great. So I'm just gonna.
We strive to give the formless form.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just get right into it. So it's the Unity domain.
Yes.
And I don't remember the last time there was a cleric on ARTcana, so I don't a new cleric subclass. So I don't remember if they all have this list of like suggested deities. Like I don't remember that being a thing for like the Forge cleric, for example. But maybe it is. So that might be misremembering.
I know for the base clerics, in the back of the book, they have all this written.
Yeah. So it's good to have it like there. I think that's an important, helpful little thing. Obviously, like depending on what your DM's into, they might have their own like gods and stuff. But these ones are a good start.
I like that they do this now, where like they just throw a smattering of these are like Elven, Greek, Norse, and Dragon.
Yeah, like all the well-known D&D races.
Yeah, Greek. Oh man, I'm playing a Greek cleric.
It's like an episode of Star Trek, where they go to space a million miles away, and it turns out it's just the Greek gods. Living on a planet, or the cavemen turn out to be Americans. It's great.
It's a cool thing, and I'm glad it's there. So the Unity cleric, the Unity domain cleric,
it's all about friendship and its magic of friendship,
camaraderie, and they also preside over marriages and stuff, harking back to when it was briefly the love domain. Now it's a bit more general, probably for the better as well. They get some domain spells, as they all do. Nothing wildly crazy. I think these are all things that are already cleric spells, but these are ones that you'll always have prepared because they're your domain spells. So they're good. I think usually for these other kind of like expanded spell lists, they've generally been hitting the mark pretty well for all the subclasses. Again, it's not. It would be weird if they were bad, but it's just like I just noticed like they have consistently been like, yeah, this is all good stuff. There's not been something that makes you go, what was that there for? That's weird.
I mean, it's kind of weird they don't get ceremony.
I get that's a fair point. I because it is always on there, obviously. But it would make sense for them to have that as their as a domain spell to always have it on because of course ceremony does have a lot of not just like because they preside over marriages and ceremony has the marriage ceremony, but it also has like other sort of
coming of age
stuff like that. Yeah, so it makes sense. Okay. Oh yeah, so the level 1 thing is I think it's probably their most like class-defining thing, which is again quite. We talked about this before, I think, in one of the other ones where Neil, you were saying like it's good to give like a class its big thing early because it means that they spend more time being unique. If you know what I mean. That was a So again, it's interesting that this actually they get their thing that is their most unique thing at level 1, which is the emboldening bond. You make a bond between two creatures, willing creatures. Within 30 feet, which is... Now, do they have to be within 30 feet of each other?
They do.
Yeah, they do, yeah, okay. So 30 feet is actually not loads. It's
not huge.
Especially if you got... if your DM likes to make sort of like 200-foot wide maps. But if you're in like a dungeon, 30 feet's probably going to be... You're not likely to be much further than that.
It does last an hour as well, so you can do it before you start hitting a tactical map, as it were.
Yeah. And I really like this. So what it does basically is it gives them kind of like a bardic inspiration every turn, and it's only a D4.
Guidance or a bless. More like a bless, actually.
Yeah, that's true actually. So it kind of is in line with some other cleric stuff already, but it's not a concentration spell.
Yeah, because this stacks with Bless.
That would be a lot actually. Yeah, like having a two d4s on top of a attack roll could be that could like save. You'd have to. It'd be a big risk obviously to roll and hope like that changes like a low roll and something good, but it could definitely a minimum of +2 onto something. It is pretty good. And up to +8, obviously. So you can use this once, and they use long rest. But again, it lasts an hour. That's really good, actually, for a level 1 ability as well.
Or just expend a spell slot. Again, I think you know, when you talked about it last time, Neil, letting people keep doing the fun thing.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah,
it's good.
What I will say about that in this case, though, is it's weird to be able to expend a spell slot to do that because they have different values. Spell slots. Because other things that you can like refund, or you can use like spell slots for, it would have a difference in what level of spell slot you're sacrificing.
Yeah, I mean you're always just gonna burn level 1.
Yeah.
The Channel Divinity I quite like.
Yeah, I like it as well.
Distribute the damage. I think this is the most interesting Channel Divinity that I can think of all like the cleric subclasses, and certainly like the most like usable in like any sort of situation. Like a lot of the Channel Divinities are very specific, and even like turn undead and destroy undead is not always going to come up. But being able to basically to distribute the damage a creature takes amongst your allies,
and being able to pile all the fire damage on the tiefling.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
you can do some smart things with it, and you're right. Like pretty much every D&D campaign is going to involve people taking damage at some point.
Yeah,
which is about as you know utility as you can get.
I'm trying to think in the campaign that we're playing, and I'm playing a cleric, and I don't think I've ever used Turn Undead. There's never been a time it's like this would be a good time to use Turn Undead.
Turn Undead is great though.
It's great, and obviously it's a classic. But I think again this Channel Divinity is very cool, and I think the most useful in a situation.
You immediately see its benefit.
Exactly, yeah. And like for example, I've been playing the Forge Cleric, and I like that Channel Divinity to be able to make an item. It's cool, but also again, it's one of those things where like it's subjectively useful. It's mostly just fun as opposed to like game-changingly useful.
Also, this can spread out some damage for a little bit. So you're going to have probably like, when you're like level 5, you're going to have like 2 Channel Divinities.
Yeah.
So if you spread out, like a 20 damage attack among, like 4 or 5 allies.
Yeah.
Even a 20, 30, 40 damage, like a huge attack.
Yeah. Something that's going to wipe a guy out.
You spread it out with your reaction, and then when your turn comes up, you can cast like Mass Healing Word and get a lot more benefit out of that individual spell, topping everyone up.
That's actually a really good point, because Mass Healing Word is a spell I really like in principle, but it's always like, well, there's only like 2 people who are wounded,
and they're
or
really
like,
hurt, or there's one person really hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that actually synergizes really, really well with Mass Healing Word. That's a really, really good point. I would also say, again, you get this at level 2, and again, we've talked occasionally about how low-level combat can be unexpectedly deadly.
Dangerous, yeah.
And so like, if you have a cleric, a second-level cleric who's got this, and some guy gets hit by a crit that accidentally rolls,
the wizard
max
gets
damage,
and it is,
and they're completely dead, then this is an opportunity to make that into a hit for everyone and they're still in pretty good nick, more or less. So I think it's going to be useful for the whole game as well.
Storytelling wise as well, I think that you can also use it to like pile all the damage on yourself.
Yeah.
I could also see some abuse where like you could pile all the damage on a familiar.
I guess you could, yeah. Surely there must be like a...
Just as other creatures in 1 point, so...
Or you could like have it where someone has like dominate person, and then make them willing to take all the damage.
Oh god, I guess you could.
Steve, you really need to take one for the team here.
You just joined, but
my best friend. I think that's actually really, really cool. Again, that it's not only because just quickly saying the Forge one again, it was really. I think I got a lot more use out of it in earlier levels than I have now that we're sort of level 10 or up 8, mid level. Because again, it always has the limit of you can only make up to 100 golds worth of a thing, whereas this is again never not going to be good. Anywho, protective bond, the level 6 thing.
They can use their reactions to give resistance to all damage to the other one.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's a team move thing. It's someone
fighting back to back kind of.
Yeah. Resistance is very good, and again, we're talking like one massive hit comes in. Maybe you've used your channel divinities, you can't split the damage up, and then well, I think using a reaction to halve any incoming damage is pretty good. Can they just do that with their reaction every turn?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's very good as well. Like, because the main use of reactions that I think most people will be familiar with is opportunity attacks, and they're good and all, but I think being able to halve any incoming damage is better than maybe hitting a guy with one attack, unless you've got some crazy weapon and you're like obviously opportunity attacks will still be good, but I think this is going to be one of those things where like I would be willing to give up the chance to maybe hit a guy to definitely reduce any incoming damage by 50%. I think that's very good.
I agree. I just as we were reading through this, there's something comes to kind of my mind of like, how would I roleplay this guy?
Yeah. It's I think they're very kind of like how when we were talking about the Paladin, the Watcher Paladin, they were like very classic and straightforward. I think this is another. This is a cleric that like feels very classic. So I think you wouldn't go wrong by being, a quite generic use of a nice healing good cleric. But
give him a dog collar, a priest.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of character. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like how would you roleplay the bond, the two people being able to use their reactions to the resistances.
Yeah.
Because it would have to. It's only 30. It's 30 feet. It's not like they're back to back. Like they're like a full like movement. Speed
and the
apart.
other thing as well with that is it's up to the. It's not your choice at that point. You've given them, unless you're bonded to them specifically. Yeah. But if you bond two people, then they're the ones making the decisions to use the die and stuff. So it is kind of weird, I guess. Yeah.
And say it's the wizard and the fighter.
Yeah.
And the wizard's just using his reaction every turn to give the fighter resistance to all damage.
Yeah. I guess
things start to get a little. They get a little, and the splitting up of damage. It's all cool and all gravy. Like I can imagine it being like, oh my god, this clerk's having real effect with what he's done.
Yeah.
But it's also like, why is he having this effect?
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things that like, if you're lazy about describing it, and also like if your other teammates, players in your party are not interested in role-playing your abilities for you, it kind of requires that level of coordination to be immersive, I think. Which might be, again, because it is your ability, but other people are the ones using it at that stage. So yeah, that might be something to consider, I guess, if you want to play one, just maybe for the first couple of like when you're first describing using it, you do a lot of like talking, and then maybe hope other people, and maybe even ask them to pick up on what you're putting down vis-a-vis how you're describing it. I guess nothing can go wrong with saying that you're literally having like magical floating sigils, holy glyphs appearing around.
Yeah.
Very, I think that'd be straightforward but effective.
Traditional symbols of bondage.
Yeah,
not like
exactly. Anywho, the level 8 thing is just potent spellcasting, which a couple of clerics get, where they basically can add their wisdom modifier to when they do damage with a cantrip. It's not the most exciting thing, but they also get other stuff at level 8.
Every cleric has the same thing at level 8.
Yeah, they get either if they're meant to be hitting people with weapons, they get a damage on melee attacks, and if they're meant to be casting spells, they get a damage on cantrips. So it's fair.
It helps with them not having multi-attack or
yeah, exactly.
Like
that nice little damage buff to keep your DPS high.
Well, it makes you feel like you're doing something, because like
exactly.
I'm imagining Bright Theo's cleric.
Yeah,
if you're attacking and you're just doing 1d6
his
plus
mate does like nothing every
round. Just a guy with a mace.
Awful.
I think it's a d6 plus 2 or
yeah,
something.
so I'm saying, like, that's you don't really want to be doing that kind of damage when people are doing monstrous things around you.
When other people are multi-attacking, and
it is also cool because it's a unique cleric thing. Like no other class has something. Yeah, I mean, there's things that are similar to it, I guess, but like just the cleric getting a straight damage buff to like weapons attacks that is like tied to their domain, or getting enhanced cantrip with that.
It's kind of like I think paladins at a certain level get their smites like guaranteed, like a D8 on every attack and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It imbues you.
Yeah. So it's cool. Right. Okay. The final thing, a big jump up to from 8th level to 17th level. I always forget like the cleric does kind of jump in their subclass like that. Kind of crazy. Their final thing. The final thing's weird. Yeah. It's cool, but it's very cinematic, but it's also kind of difficult to pull off, I think. Yeah, I don't get this first sentence. The bonds you create endure across vast distances. Creatures affected by your emboldening bond feature gain its benefits, as well as those of your protective bond feature. Oh, okay, so that's just getting rid of the 30 feet thing.
Yes.
So now it's just any distance. Okay, yeah, wow. Yeah. So long as it's on the same plane of existence, because when I was first reading that, I had forgotten about the 30 feet, or I wasn't thinking about it. So it's like the sentence just sort of peters out. I was like, what do you mean? Like, where's the information here? But so that's really good. Obviously, again, 17th level, it's very high. It would be annoying to be stuck 30 feet to people to get your benefits. People are going to have lots of crazy movement options by then.
I mean, you got like 9th level spells, like, or about to get them.
You're going to have crazy movement options before level 17, so it's going to be annoying up till then, but it's still good to have. The other thing, the other benefit is when someone is reduced to 0 hit points, if they're bonded to someone else, the person they're bonded to goes into like revenge mode for a minute, and they have advantage on all their attack. They have advantage on everything essentially, all their d20s, and they get resistance to all damage, and they can. I guess the main reason for it, I think, because this ends if they get healed. It is the person who went down got healed. You can use your action to touch the bonded partner, and expend hit dice to heal them back up, which is really good.
It's cool
because it's very cool. So basically, you can get a person back up to full health from dead potentially, especially if you're like a fighter who then uses your fighter hit dice to get a wizard back up because it's your hit dice.
Basically, really giving him a second wind.
Yeah. But if you're like 17th level
I'm just going to
fighter,
spend 10 hit dice. 10
you just get you back up to full.
Plus your con.
Plus all your con, yeah.
Lovely.
So that's I think the actual point of that ability. The other bit is fun, becoming
it's going on a little rampage.
Rampage. Again, but I guess the point there being that you might not actually be close enough to get to them in 1 or 2 turns.
So you can try and get over to them.
Yeah, and do some hits on the way.
Also, completely abusable.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yes,
everything in this is just written as creatures.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can use your share the burden to put all of the damage onto a familiar that somebody is bonded with, and just blast the 1 hit point familiar to then give them all those buffs for a minute.
Christ, I guess you could.
Yeah.
I feel like this class is a little bit overly powered.
Yeah, and then as your next action, you can recast another bond on somebody else.
God, yeah, you can.
Yeah, because at 17th level, you're going to have like a bunch of first level spell slots that you're not going to be using for. Yeah. You're going to be maybe casting Bless and stuff because it's still going to be good, but I don't even know. Maybe not. So that is going to be what those first level spell slots are for. Yeah, I think this class is a bit OP.
I almost feel like this is a bard.
It kind of is a bard in a way. Again, having what is essentially a bardic inspiration die.
But it's like encouraging. A lot of this stuff is all about like encouraging teamwork and
buffing your friends.
Yeah, which cleric is about, but I've always like seen it different. Like it's more about bolstering your friends spiritually and like emotionally through like healing and things like that.
Yeah,
I don't have an issue with the theming because I think it does fill a gap in cleric, but I think it's just too much. Like
I do like it. I do.
Yeah,
I do like this cleric, and seeing what you've drawn for it as just a nice person.
Yeah.
I think that could be like very fun.
Yeah.
The only thing that's actually putting me off this cleric is that if I were to play it, I would be thinking, man, this is really strong. And as well, what you would actually be doing is you'd use your bond turn 1 or before you even start fighting, and then you'd just be casting cleric spells, and you wouldn't actually be doing anything really differently to normal cleric stuff. Not that that's really an issue, because again, the bond would be something that's happening every turn. It'd be very interesting and it'd be fun, and every turn they'd be using it, and you'd be going, "Yeah, I did that," and you'd still be getting to use your spells. So it'd be rewarding, but I'd be worried, like, man, am I OP? It's definitely cool, but it's I would like to see it like reworked a little bit. Maybe make the wording on some things a little bit more tight, so it's not so abusable with familiars and stuff like that.
I think there's some terminology that doesn't exist in D&D yet.
Yeah, there needs to be something
for
like
a
player.
number of player characters or something.
Yeah, that's not something that they haven't gone there yet. Not in this edition.
Because it's a bit too gamey.
Yeah, because if you do that, then people would be like, "Well, why?"
Yeah,
like realistically, like, isn't like not like. In universe, you could argue why would it be only that? It makes perfect sense. Obviously, I think everything you say is correct though. Like, it is a little bit. It's not. It is. I guess it is vague. Vague is the word. Although what can you?
I think that's the benefit of this edition of D&D though.
Yeah.
Everything was very rigidly laid down before. I think that there's enough wiggle room in a lot of different things to interpret it quite simply, because it's common language is like used to a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking now about this cleric and how cool it could be in certain parties. Like, imagine being able to, because it's just creatures, you could bond the ranger and his beast companion.
That would be really good, yeah.
And then they can heal each other, and they get bonuses to fighting, and they're going to be next to each other.
Yeah.
Like an artificer and his, construct.
Is there, in terms of maybe changing the wording to make it, is there room to say something along the lines of, because you're about unity and camaraderie, you should only be able to bond things that have like some sort of, like a friendly relationship. So, like a familiar is not necessarily something that's going to be able to have
an established ally or something.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that like there's no mechanic.
Yeah, I guess the closest they've got is willing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And beyond like putting like a charisma, like you got to reach a certain charisma, then I don't know. It's not really.
But then the barbarians now not considered.
It's like, we're not friends. I'm charismatic. No.
In principle, though, I love this. I do really like this guy. First time reading it through when it was like in the leaky stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? This cloak's got some legs.
Yeah.
It can stand on its own. Because compare it to like any of the other ones, like a dedicated healer one that's all about healing, or like or like the storm cleric, which is about killing everyone with lightning powers.
That's the thing, yeah. Because I was thinking this cleric's a bit OP, but then I'm thinking about some of the other clerics, and some of them, like, this isn't weaker than a lot of the other really strong clerics. In terms of like, and it's hard to judge how strong it is because it's not doing loads of damage.
No,
it's just keeping. It's
constantly keeping
alive.
People stronger.
Yeah,
it's kind of MOBA-esque almost, like.
Yeah. And we might revisit that concept when we do the Bard, in terms of these ones feel a little bit more video gamey. I think I'd like it to be like, I don't know. I don't even know what I would change is the thing.
I think your DM just asking you to not do that.
Yeah, like just don't abuse it.
Or your DM literally just telling you, no, you can't do that. That's. Or the amount of hit point damage you can't put on someone can't exceed the number of hit points something has. Something like.
Yeah. Maybe not being able to actually kill people with the spreading out of damage.
It has to be spread evenly.
Or you can reduce it to 1.
Yeah, something like that. Because, of course, cloaks also get, like, animate dead in their spell list, so you could have a skeleton walking around just to put damage on.
Yeah.
And stuff.
That's true.
But, those things are fun, though, as well. So
they are fun, yeah. I could the metagamer inside my head is trying to be like, how can I break this?
How can I break this in half?
Like, we don't play with an adversarial DM.
No, it's true. Sometimes people have a...
Yeah, people like the thrill of the challenge, and if that's the case, then like something like this class is a metagamer's dream.
Yeah,
and that isn't always a bad... Metagaming isn't always inherently bad.
If your DM is always like being
bust you
killing
up.
people and being real annoying, then I think you're okay to play something that's very strong. In terms of like this cleric, I think if I were to, the issue here for me is I'm currently playing a cleric, so it's not like high on my list of priorities. Like, but I think if I were to make a cleric tomorrow and I hadn't been making a forge cleric, I probably would choose this cleric over most of the other ones, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good cleric.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah,
because you can still heal real good, and you'll have to heal. You don't have to heal as much because you're going to reduce everyone's damage. It's good fun, and I like being the good guy. So it's a good guy one.
You're also playing your own game.
Yeah,
I quite like classes that play their own game. Like I'm thinking of from 4th edition, the Warlord.
Oh yeah,
where he's ordering and moving other players around the battlefield.
Yeah.
Trying to get them to do things like this cleric is trying to get people to stick together and yeah, I can. That's pretty fun.
I'm gonna go run over and hit him. No, if you do that, you're gonna be out 30 feet. Throw a javelin then.
It could be a good party leader character as well.
Yeah, maybe. No, I'm just imagining like a supply teacher ruling over a bunch of rowdy children. And like,
that sounds like the cleric's job.
We're going to do one more of these for the Bard, the College of Creation.
And it will be just as nice as this one.
We're going to be really positive about it. We love it.